Dearly beloved, I beseech you as strangers and pilgrims, to refrain yourselves from carnal desires, which war against the soul. Having your conversation good among the Gentiles. Whereas they speak against you as evildoers, they may, by the good works that they shall behold in you, glorify God in the day of visitation. Be ye subject, therefore, to every human creature, for God's sake, whether it be to the king as excelling, or to governors as sent by him for the punishment of evildoers, and for the praise of the good. For so is the will of God, that by doing well you may put to silence the ignorance of foolish men, as free and not as making liberty a cloak for malice, but as the servants of God. Honor all men, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king. Servants, be subject to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the froward. For this is thankworthy before God and Christ Jesus our Lord. Gospel. Taking that according to St. John chapter 16. At that time Jesus said to his disciples, a little while and now you shall not see me. Again a little while and you shall see me, because I go to the Father. Then some of the disciples said one to another, what is this that he saith to us? A little while and you shall not see me, and again a little while and you shall see me, and because I go to the Father. They said, therefore, what is this that he saith, a little while? We know not what he speaketh. Jesus knew that they had a mind to ask him. And he said to them, of this do you inquire among yourselves, because I said, a little while, you shall not see me. Again a little while, and you shall see me. Many men I say unto you that you shall lament and weep, but the world shall rejoice. You shall be made sorrowful, but your sorrow shall be turned into joy. A woman, when she is in labor, hath sorrow, because her hour is come. And when she hath brought forth a child, she remembereth no more the anguish for joy that a man is born into the world. So also you now indeed have sorrow, but I will see you again, and your heart shall rejoice, and your joy no man shall take from you. Thus are the words of today's Holy Gospel. Amen. In the middle of this sacred season of Easter, third Sunday after Easter, within the middle of this 50 days or 40 days after Easter, it's a time of joy. Jesus Christ has truly risen from the dead, and there's no doubt. And there's certitude about his resurrection, certitude about his gospel, certitude about his truth. And yet we have a consideration in the gospel today of the mystery of joy and sorrow, and what must happen. What must happen if Christ comes into a place. First it said in the introit. The introit often is said to be the part of the Mass that gives us the spirit of the Sunday. And here it says in the Mass in the introit today, shout with joy for God. Shout with joy to God, from Psalm 65. Shout with joy to God, all the earth. Hallelujah. Sing ye a psalm to his name. Give glory to his praise. Say unto God, how terrible are thy works, O Lord. In the multitude of thy strength, thy enemies shall lie to thee. So we have all these positive things. And the positive things are, shout to the joy of God, sing a psalm to his name, give glory to his praise, and say unto God, how terrible, how wonderful, how powerful are thy works. And what is going to happen? In the multitude of thy strength, thy enemies shall lie to thee. We cannot have the true praise of God, we cannot have the true praise of his name, without the enemies lying. Lying must happen. There must be lies. And then we find in the gospel, our Lord, or rather in the epistle, St. Peter speaks, and he says, have your conversation good among the Gentiles, that whereas they speak against you as evildoers, they may, by the good works which they shall behold in you, glorify God in the day of visitation. They will call you evildoers. So it must be. And then in the gospel, our Lord gives the parable of the woman who is about to have a child, and she has sorrow because her hour has come. And he compares that sorrow with the sorrow of his apostles. there must be sorrow in the apostle. There must be sorrow in the priest. There must be sorrow in the bishop. And there must be sorrow in the pope. There must be sorrow wherever we bring Christ. The mother of our church who stood at the foot of the cross, she is the mother of sorrows. The founder of our church is the man of sorrows. So there must be sorrow. But there is an hour of sorrow. Only an hour. The average day is 24 hours, and there will be an hour of sorrow. The other 23 hours will actually not be sorrow. But there will be an hour of sorrow. There will be a time of sorrow. And during that time, there shall be rejoicing. And the rejoicing is spoken of by Christ also. At that same time of sorrow, there's going to be rejoicing. So Christ speaks about that rejoicing in the gospel. He says, you shall be sorrowful, he said to his apostles Holy Thursday night, because a little while I will not be with you. You shall be sorrowful. During that time, between Holy Thursday when he's taken away in the garden, until his return on Easter Sunday morning, they shall be sorrowful, but the world shall rejoice. There's going to be rejoicing in the world. And what's the cause of the rejoicing in the world, or the cause of satanic sorrow, satanic joy? The cause of the rejoicing in the world is Christ is being crucified. The cause of the rejoicing in the world is that he's suffering. The cause of rejoicing in the world is that our enemies are suffering and they are about to die. Joseph Stalin and also many of the members of the French Revolution looking at their lists of the dead. They looked at the list of the dead. Joseph Stalin used to look at the list of the dead. And he rejoiced at all these people that he had killed. But then he needed to kill more. So he could look at another list and another list. And so did several of the killers during the time of the French Revolution. Look at the list of all those that were guillotined. And they rejoiced that their enemies suffered and died. And the devil gives this kind of rejoicing, and it lasts about an hour. And during that hour, the friends of God suffer. During that hour, the enemies of God rejoice. But when the hour comes to an end, the friends of God rejoice, and your joy no man shall take from you. They're going to call you evildoers. They're going to lie about you. And as it says in the 8th Beatitude, they will be rejoice and be glad when men shall revile you and persecute you and say all manner of evil against you, the key word, for my name's sake. Then your rejoice is great in heaven. So there must be a reviling. There must be an attacking. There must be a splitting. There must be a war. This must happen if we bring Christ. Which is why our Lord Jesus Christ says, blessed is he that is not scandalized in me. We can't come without scandal. Yet blessed is he that is not scandalized in me. And yet woe to him by whom the scandal comes. Who does the scandal come from? It comes from the liars. It comes from the wicked ones. It comes from those that condemn falsely. We experience this now. And one of the condemnations we want to consider is the one that St. Peter had to deal with amongst the Romans. It's called ecumenism. When St. Peter came with his religion, the true religion, to Rome, the Romans had no problem with it. The Romans had no problem accepting Jesus Christ as God. No problem whatsoever. They even built a special pantheon, a famous pantheon. They built a round temple. They constructed this temple shortly after the time of Christ, but they built this round temple. It was in their plans. They built this round temple which had no central part. And on that temple they would place all the gods, so that when the Romans would go to any place, they would conquer it. And instead of forcing those people to worship the Roman gods, they would say, you can worship your own gods. Not only that, we'll take representatives of your gods, we'll take your idols, and we'll bring them back to Rome. And we'll put them on the wall. And if you visit Rome, you'll see a round church, a round temple called the Pantheon. And you'll see there's a Roman god there, there's a Hindu god there, there's a Greek god there, there's a god of some small country in Africa there. All the gods are made on an equal plane. We have no problem accepting other gods. But there was a problem only with one God. And why was there a problem with that God? The problem of the God that the Romans would not accept was the true God, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. and Jesus Christ, God the Son made man. And why did they have a problem with him? Because the followers of that God, who is the true God, what did they say? They said all other gods are devils. Not just the gods of Rome, but the gods of India, and the gods of Africa, and the gods of North and South America, and the gods of Antarctica, and the gods of the North Pole, and the gods of every single place. They are all devils. And they are all from hell. And they all must be rejected because there's only one true God. And there's only one true religion. This was most offensive to the Romans. And what did they say? You're bad citizens. You're crazy. We have no problem worshiping your God. Bring Jesus Christ in. We'll worship him. Bring your mass. Bring your mass into Rome. The emperor will attend your mass. No problem. He'll receive Holy Communion in your mass just like Bill Clinton received Holy Communion in the Catholic Mass in Africa. The emperor has no problem going to Holy Communion. The emperor has no problem, even though he thinks he's a god, he has no problem worshiping another god. I mean, gods get along. And so he has no problem. Ecumenism is not actually a Vatican II heresy. In fact, it's a pagan heresy. In a Christian world, ecumenism doesn't exist. If you'll notice, even a few hundred years ago, the Methodists and all the different Protestant religions also hated the other Protestant religions. They rejected them because they knew there's only one true religion of Christianity. And so they rejected each other. But when Christianity becomes pagan, when we take on the ideology of paganism, then this paganism, which in the Catholic Church is simply called ecumenism. We give it a new name. You can worship your God, he can worship his God, we can worship our God, they're all gods. What difference does it make? Romans have their statues and their gods. Greeks have their statues and their gods. And the problem is this. What's the problem? The problem is, you followers of Jesus Christ, you Catholics, you true Christians, you are judgmental. The problem is, you true Christians, you say that you have the only truth. And that is proud, and that is arrogant, and that cannot be tolerated in Roman society. Therefore, we put you to death. Well, have they broken any laws? No. Are they good citizens? No. Are they obedient citizens? Yes. Are they virtuous citizens? Yes. Are they the best citizens of Rome? Yes. Yes, they are. These Christians are the best citizens, but it doesn't matter that they're the best citizens of Rome. They must be put to death because they say their God is the only true God. And he is the only true God. Balanced men would say not this kind of thing. Now, what do we find in our arguments against the various Protestant religions in the last 150 years? Ecumenism began to spread in Protestant religions about 100 years ago, or a little more than 100 years ago. 200 years ago, you don't find it. But in the last 200 years, ecumenism spread amongst the Protestants, so that Protestants would accept each other so long as you weren't Catholic. In the beginning, they rejected each other as well as the Catholics, and there were only a few to reject. But when there became to be thousands of Protestant religions, they didn't even know the names of all of them. Now there are more than 300,000. In the 1960s, there were more than 300,000 Protestant sects. Now there are many more than that. So they have to be ecumenical. They don't even know the names of all the religions they're supposed to hate, who all claim to be followers of Christ. This ecumenism enters into the Catholic Church, and now we find it entering into the Catholic tradition in the battle against the modernism of the Church. And the ecumenism is a very serious problem. And it's a big problem that we're dealing with. And all that it is paganism. It's just paganism. Paganism entering into Christianity. Just like the charismatic movement is pagan prayer, ecumenism is pagan thinking. The way that pagans think about religion is ecumenical, and the way that pagans pray is charismatic. And the charismatic movement is entered into the church, and the modernist church, and the pagans have entered into the modern, pagan thinking is entered into the modernist church. And now it is spread throughout the world in every way. What are the hallmarks of it? The wise man does not make a simple judgment that there's only one truth. Whoever says there's only one truth is a little bit off. Whoever says there's only one truth cannot be trusted. Whoever says there's only one truth is very proud. and you shouldn't trust him. Should you analyze his truth? No. If he only says there's one truth, he's crazy. He's extreme. Now what happened to this mentality, which is the mentality of paganism? It enters into Catholic tradition. The great carrier of this pagan mentality in our little world is Bishop Richard Nelson Williams, who carries the pagan thinking when he says that you should consider all the sides and be thinking. He always says that. You must be a thinking Catholic. You must be thinking. And as you think, you will consider that, well, sedevacantism is one option in the consideration of the situation of the church. I'm not saying that it's the answer, that he's not the Pope. Personally, I think he is the Pope, but I get it. I get what they're saying. It makes a lot of sense. But then there are others that say that he is the Pope. I believe he is the Pope, but I'm not saying that I have all the answers. I'm not going to say that I'm the only one that knows the answers, so maybe he is the Pope. Maybe he isn't the Pope, but we have to be wise, and we have to hold all of them together. When we had a priest meeting in 2014 in France, in Albrier, 18 of us priests there, myself, Father Hugo, and other priests, Bishop Williams and Father Pierre-Marie were terrified of a war breaking out between the mean Father Pfeiffer on one side and the mean Father Rio on the other. Father Rio was going to promote the sedevacantist question, and Father Pfeiffer was going to blast the sedevacantist. And they didn't want there to be a war. And so they said, whenever the word sedevacantism came up, and Father Rio brought it up, what about the problem? They said, no, we're not going to talk about it. Wouldn't allow us to talk about it at the meeting for fear that there would be a conflict. We don't want a conflict. So we never had a discussion about it. What are we going to do about this question? What's going to be our position in the USML about sedevacantism? We're not going to talk about it. We'll put it on the table some other time. But we're not going to talk about it because we have to be balanced, and we can't believe there's only one dogmatic truth. We had a priest in South America just a couple of weeks ago. I'm against dogmatic sedevacantism. I'm against dogmatic anti-sedevacantism. This mentality is the mentality of paganism. St. Peter says, they will call you evildoers. They will say you're crazy. They will lie about you when you praise the name of God. There's only one true God. There's only one true religion. In fact, just now, a little distracted now in the sermon because just before Mass I met Father Erkley. We have an ecumenical building today. So on the one side, you got the sedevacantist Mass right over there. Now we've got the non-sedevacantist Mass here in the same building. 3 years ago, it was just one Mass. It was just our Mass. It was just one parish. It was just our parish. Now it's divided in 3 parts. Extreme sedevacantists, moderate balanced, and then nutty anti-sedevacantists. That's us. So we have the 3 parts now of this parish. So a little distracting because I met my Father Erkley. It's his very first time coming here, by the way, today. He's never been here before. He's, just so you know, his home is near Seattle, Washington. Father Hugo met him once over there. We have, but he says Mass somewhere in the Seattle area. We also say Mass in the Seattle area. And so he has his regular parish there. So he's flying here from the other side of the country, 3,000 miles to fly here in order to say the Mass. The very first time he came today, why is he able to come? He's sedevacantist. So we had a 2-second argument about sedevacantism, very briefly outside, and a very brief discussion, not much time. But the fact is, he stands on one side, nice priest, good priest, he's sedevacantist. I stand on the other side, not so nice, not so good, but anti-sedevacantist. And so, but the fact is that what are we here for? It's a battle of the faith. The one thing that they say, and he even admitted to me in our brief conversation, because he left with Father Morello. When Father Morello left in 1989, he was not sedevacantist, but he became that way. And he admitted that there are stages. I said, one of the problems is there's stages. First, you say, well, I'm not going to pray with the Pope. But I'm not saying he's not the Pope. And then, well, maybe he's not the Pope, but let's not talk about it because we're not sure. And then, of course, he's not the Pope, but people can't take it, so it won't tell them. And then eventually open bold sedevacantism goes in stages. The truth doesn't go like that. We don't say Jesus Christ is a really powerful dude. And then later on say, you know what? He's like super duper powerful, like Superman. And then you know what? He's actually angelic in his power. You know what? He's not just angelic, he's borderline divine. And then, oh my goodness, you know what? He's actually God. I knew it. We don't go like that. On the very first day, when St. Thomas met the Hindu pagan, he told him on day one, before he said, hi, my name is Thomas, and you're a Hindu priest, whatever. Before he introduced himself, he said, your gods are devils. And what's your name again? Your gods are devils, and my God is the only God and the true God. He's not the same as your God, because my God is God, and your God is devil. And then he proved to them that his God was God by performing miracles, which only the true God can do. And those Hindu priests converted, and he ordained some of them priests. He made some of them bishops of the Catholic Church, and they left behind their Hinduism, and they left behind their false gods, and they repudiated them, and they became followers of Thomas. And some of them were ordained priests and made bishops, on the condition that they abandoned the false religion. Now, what we find in a pagan society is that the one thing that cannot be tolerated is someone who says, I hold the truth. That cannot be tolerated in a pagan society. We are now in a neo-pagan society. And whoever says, I hold the truth, and I do say it, I hold the truth. I hold the truth of the gospel contained in the sacred word of God. I hold the truth of the church contained in all the teachings of our church down the last 2,000 years, and including the Old Testament, the 4,000 years before that, down the last 6,000 years. I follow the one and only true God, who was made man, who died on the cross for our sins, and who is the only way to heaven. And there is only one way to get to heaven. And I reject firmly, completely, and fully all religious services that are not in this true church, such as the false religious service that is called the Novice Ordo Mass, and all of the new rites. I haven't read the new rite for blessing of ashes. I'm not interested. The new rite for the blessing of ashes, of the cremated bodies, is a rite that came from Pope John Paul II. It is a rite that comes after Vatican II. It is a rite for blessing bodies that are cremated, which is forbidden by the church. Therefore, it is a wrong and not a right. I'm not interested. It is of the devil. Hence we say, with Archbishop Lefebvre, and the East repeats the words of the saints who came before him, we reject this new religion with all its sacramental rites. And whatever new rites they try to come up with, we're not going to read the rite on the Catholic gay marriage ceremony. We don't need to do that. We're not going to read the rite about the blessing of ashes of cremated bodies forbidden by the church. We don't need to read every single prayer and the blessing of the new ritual. We don't need to read every code in the new code of canon law. We know that these codes are from the new church. They are promoted a new religion. They are rejected. They are not from the true God. You are too judgmental. You are too univocal. As one priest of the society told me, one that I had to sign the paper for him to be approved when he went to the seminary. He wasn't allowed to go to the seminary unless I signed the paper approving of him, because there was question marks about him being allowed in the seminary before he entered. Now he's a priest, and as a priest he told me, you're too black and white. You're too univocal. And I don't like that. And I teach my seminarians, they must be balanced. They must see all sides. They must be not too committed to one doctrine. This is the statement of the standard pagan priest 1,700 years ago in Rome. It was the teaching of the normal pagan. All that is happening is that we are learning that Solomon was right after all when he said there's nothing new under the sun. And those who speak the truth, who praise the name of God truly, and praise the glory of God truly, what must happen. There will be lies. So said David 1,000 years before Christ was born. There will be lies. And so we hear lies. It's the most normal thing in the world. We hear lies. But what must be done? One of the arguments that we used to make against Protestants, because you remember the original Protestant knew Jesus Christ founded one church. Well, the Protestants in the last 100 years forgot that. So one of our apologetical arguments against the Protestants would be, your religion, Methodist, or whatever it is, whatever variety of Protestant they decided to follow, if it was a true religion, it would have to say it's the only true religion, because there's only one God, therefore there can only be one true religion. And if your religion is a true religion, it better claim to be the true religion, and the only religion founded by Christ, not by Joseph Smith, not by Martin Luther, not by John Calvin, not by some idiot or heretic, not by Henry VIII, but by Jesus Christ and God himself. Did God found your religion? No, he did not. Do you claim to have the only true religion? You don't even know that you have the true religion. The true religion, which comes from one God, can only be one. So one of the little signs that a religion is not the true religion is it doesn't claim to be the true religion. And applying this principle to our own situation, one of the signs that the members of the resistance are not truly following Christ, and one of the signs that members of the resistance are not teaching the truth, is when they don't claim to be teaching the only truth, then they're necessarily wrong. As long as you're not a dogmatic sedevacantist, it's okay. As long as you're not a dogmatic anti-sedevacantist, it's okay. Bishop Williamson told me that back in 2014. My problem with you is you're too strict in your anti-sedevacantism. And he had Father Thomas Aquinas sitting next to him. Father Thomas Aquinas said, you must listen to the bishop because he's the bishop. They said, you got to have a better argument than that. I listen to the truth because it comes from Christ, it comes from the gospel, it comes from the saints. Don't tell me listen to him because he's a bishop. There's 6,000 other ones out there, and they're nuts. We don't listen to a bishop because he's a bishop. We listen to the teachings of the faith and the gospel. And Father Thomas Aquinas was there with Bishop Williamson trying to convince me to not be too anti-sedevacantists. That this was the problem that Bishop Williamson had with me back in 2014. You have too much anti-sedevacantism. I'm not a sedevacantist either, says Bishop Williamson. But don't be too judgmental against them. It's an acceptable position to have. No, it is not. No, it is not. Because the captain of the ship, the representative of Christ, is either there or not. If Francis is the representative of Christ, then we pray for him, as we do in this Holy Mass, and we follow him in the correct way. And the only way to be obedient to Pope Francis is to do what Archbishop Lefebvre said we had to do, and that is to resist his every decree and movement until he turns back to God. That's the way to be obedient. And to be disobedient to him is to fulfill his wicked will, because his personal wicked will is the will of Satan manifested through his humanity. His true will as Pope is the will of God manifested through him as the representative of Christ. And that will is that the Catholic faith be taught everywhere in the world, that the Latin Tridentate Mass be celebrated, that the true faith be taught in its entirety, and that's the only way to be truly obedient and faithful to the Holy Father. And right now, by teaching you the true faith, by following the gospel, I'm being truly obedient to the Holy Father. And those priests who are celebrating the new Mass, who are teaching the various levels of modernism, they are not being obedient to the Holy Father. They are being disobedient. And those priests who say that he's not the Holy Father have cut themselves off from the Holy Church. We must be united to the Holy Church as the Holy Church. And when the church comes back to its senses, so it comes back to its senses. And there is only one truth. And those who say, oh, there's many different truths, and those who cannot answer a question, they are not of God. They are not of God. So that those who cannot give clear answers are not of God, period. One such one is being consecrated a bishop in a couple of days. Father Zendeas, Not able to give clear answers, what he believes, what he does not believe. Going to be consecrated bishop in a few days. What he teaches, what he does not teach. Look at the website, episcopalconsecrations.com. Mentions that he was born in Mexico. He was raised in Mexico. He went to the seminary of Loreja. He was stationed in such a place in South America. He was stationed in Colombia. He was then transferred to Mexico. He then went to New York, where he became my boss after a while. He was first there in Richfield under my brother, and then he was there for a few more years. He was the prior. At the end of that time, he was my superior. Then he was transferred to Texas, and then he joined Bishop Williamson, and he's really good at teaching in schools and founding schools and building churches, and he's going to be consecrated a bishop. Quel est le problème, as the frogs say. What is the stinking problem? What's the problem? The problem is nothing of Jesus Christ, nothing of the crisis in the church, nothing of the Catholic faith, nothing of why he went with Bishop Williamson. You look at the thing, oh, he was transferred from Texas to Bishop Williamson. No. Or maybe he was. But officially the answer is no. He was supposed to have left the Society of St. Pius X because there's a problem. What's the problem? He's supposed to have come to the resistance in order to fight for the faith against modernism. What faith? What modernism? Not a word about it. That's not the way to be of God. When Archbishop Lefebvre consecrated his 4 bishops, he told them clearly in a little letter of June of 1988, you are there to defend the faith. You are there to preserve the Catholic priesthood. You are there to preserve the Catholic Church, and you will keep your mitres and your croziers tight in your hands. And when the Holy Father comes back to the true faith, which he will, maybe not in your lifetimes, but he will, when he comes back to the faith, lay your croziers down at his feet. Until that time, hold them tight. Why did he say that? Lay the crozier down. What is a crozier? It's a weapon. It's a weapon. And the bishop is to use that weapon to defend the sheep. One of the great problems of the church today and the world today is we are in an ecumenical society that believes it's okay to believe whatever you wish to believe. No, it is not. No, it is not. There is only one truth. And they say if you believe in only one truth, you're too crazy. You're too nutty. You're too insane. But there is only one truth. And the apostle of the Lord Jesus Christ is supposed to carry that truth throughout the world. And he should not disguise it, as the case of the Sedevacantists and the liberals are both the same. They disguise their true purpose. Oh, I'm not a Sedevacantist. I'm not really a Sedevacantist. I'm not really a modernist. I'm just really like you. But we're going to slowly pull you in. That's how you catch a fish. Pull the string too tight, the string breaks. But pull it and let go. Pull it and let go. Pull it and let go. And the fish grows tired. And then you pull him out of the water. That's the way. And we must beware of this method and stand firm with the truth and not fall into the pagan error of ecumenism. Not a new error. The pagan error of ecumenism. And the pagan wisdom, which is to say all things must be considered in balance. There's no one truth. There's many different truths, and they must all be respected. This is paganism. And pagan philosophy and pagan theology, which is now entering into our own ranks, cannot be accepted. This is not of God. Stand for the one holy truth, the one holy